Good morning, Darlacansell, realtor with Real Broker from South Louisiana, mostly servicing Acadiana, but literally I will go just about anywhere in Louisiana to list a property or a home or a building or whatever the case may be. So listen, if you're not in Acadiana and you need an agent, do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'd love to help you. Let's talk about due diligence. And this is something most of you know. I just got into real estate 5 years ago. And when I got into real estate, I was in education prior to that. So literally what I thought I knew about real estate, most of it was totally wrong. Lots of misconceptions out there for sure. So listen, we sold a house a couple of years before I got into real estate, and the buyers had it inspected, and it was a very, very, very long list, which is common. Y'all, there's no such thing as a perfect house. I don't care if it's brand new. If you have it inspected, an inspector's job is to find imperfections, and that's their job, and they'll do it. So whether the house is a couple of 100 years old or brand new, they will find things wrong with it. There's no such thing as a perfect house. So we sold our house, but the buyers had it inspected. The inspector had a mile-long list of things that were wrong with the house. So we believed that we had to fix every single thing on that list because we didn't use a realtor, because we didn't know better. It was for sale by owner. And listen, I'm talking about when a house is inspected, the inspector is going to find things that are very, very minor, all the way to things that are major. Well, most of the things with our home, because we did a great job of taking care of it. So most of the things with our home were minor, just minor little things. But we did every single thing on that list. Well, guess what? We did not have to. So if you hire a realtor, your realtor is going to say to you, in any contract, whether you're the buyer or the seller, so let's just pretend you're the buyer. When you're the buyer, there is a blank on the Louisiana purchase agreement that says you, the buyer, have so much time to have what's called your due diligence period and your inspection period, which means during that time, after you go into contract with the seller, you have whatever amount of time you put in that blank. Generally for us as realtors, if there's no extenuating circumstances, if it's just a regular deal with a person that just works regular hours, those days are usually anywhere between 7 to 14 days. And what those days are for the buyers to have the time to hire any inspector that they choose to go check out that house from roof all the way down to the ground. And it could be anyone they choose. It can be a licensed inspector. They could inspect it themselves. It can be their uncle, their grandpa. It could be anybody. If there's a pool, they're going to want to have a pool inspection. So they have the right to have as many inspections that they choose to, as thorough as they choose to, during that due diligence period. And during that time, the buyer has the right to walk away, no questions asked, for no reason, can cancel the contract with no repercussions whatsoever during the due diligence period. So let's say you have on your contract 10 days for due diligence. You have until the 10th day after the last person signed the contract to cancel that contract, no questions asked. And so a lot of people don't know that. Make sure that you read your contract carefully if you're not being represented by a realtor. And if you're being represented by a realtor, make sure they explain that contract to you line by line by line by line. So if I'm representing you as the buyer, this is what we're going to do. The day it goes under contract, we are getting in touch with a licensed inspector to get into that house and inspect it top to bottom thoroughly as soon as possible. Why? You want to do it as soon as possible because if the inspector finds something major that you weren't anticipating, and listen, y'all, I've probably close now to, over the last 5 years, close to 350 transactions, and probably 2 or 3 have actually found something so bad that they canceled the contract. Because listen, anything is repairable. Anything can be remediated. There has never been something so totally bad that it can't be repaired. Now, sometimes a client just says, well, listen, I just don't even want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with it. And they cancel it, but it's very, very, very seldom, because everything is repairable. So let's just say you just had the house inspected and the inspector says, listen, under most of the sinks, all of the plumbing is just loose. So there's a slow, steady drip. You as the buyer, that's just one example, have the right to a couple of different options. You, number one, can say, I want the seller to fix that. Okay? The seller can fix it and you're moving on. You can say, I'm not too worried about that. I have plumbing background. I just want him to take a little bit of money off the price and I'll fix it after closing. Number three, you can just cancel the contract. Now listen, nobody's canceling a contract for something that silly unless you did not really truly want to buy the house in the first place. Some people, I think, may go into contract on a house. They feel like they settled and may be looking for a reason out, but that's your right. During your due diligence period, you have the time to think about it. You have the time to go shopping and looking at other houses. You have the time to do all the things you need to do. But if you have a good realtor who's on the ball, they're going to schedule inspections ASAP so that you know, are you for sure moving forward with the purchase of this home? Or do you need to go shopping for some other homes if you're not absolutely sure? So use your due diligence period to your advantage. And so what I do, if I'm representing the buyer and we just had an inspection on a home Thursday afternoon, so this is what we're gonna do. She's going to get the entire inspection report. And listen, it's lots and lots and lots and lots of pages. It's probably about 50 pages long, right? Of every single little nitpicky thing that could possibly be wrong with that house. It's going to be in that report. The buyer gets the report. The buyer then looks it over and decides what's important to them. Do they want to cancel the contract because it's just too much to deal with and they want to go look for a better house? Do they want to get the seller to fix some of the major items? And listen, I always tell my buyers, if you're my buyer, no house is perfect. There are going to be issues. It will be your responsibility to look at that report and decide what's important to you. And do you want the seller to fix some things? Do you want a price reduction? Do you want a combination of both? But it's your decision. I may think something in the report is major, and with your background knowledge, you may think it's minor. So it's absolutely your decision to make as what's important to you on that contract. Listen, and we're going to use our good common sense. We're not going to ask for a litany of items that are just nitpicky and ridiculous. You know you're buying a used house, right? As the buyer, you're buying a used house. You cannot expect it to be perfect. And listen, when I'm the listing agent and I represent the sellers, we are so proactive that we are making sure by the time an inspector walks in that door as the buyer, the seller has been so proactive in making sure that if you know some plumbing's leaking, you're fixing it. If you know there's blank spaces in your breaker box and the inspector's for sure going to flag that and want it fixed, you're fixing those. If there are junction boxes in the attic that are wide open, they're going to flag that, get that done. Lots of those things just take a little time, a little effort, but when you as the seller are super proactive in making sure that all those little minor things aren't found by an inspector believes this, that you have taken great care of your home, that you're proud of it, and they're not going to be so inclined to just really be investigating. Listen, inspectors are humans just like you and I. First impressions make a huge difference. So if they walk up to your house, and let's just say they're walking into the entrance door, and it stinks, and it feels dirty and grimy and dark, which listen, my listings, I promise you, are never going to look like that. But if I don't represent you as the seller, and an inspector walks into your house and they get the feeling right away that you have not taken pride in your house and you haven't kept up with it, they are going to be so more inclined to then be more diligent and more investigative because they know you haven't taken care of your house. If you've taken great care of your house, they know it from the minute they walk in the door, and they're not going to just try to crucify you. So think about that. First impressions are huge. So you as the seller, remember this. Once you go under contract with a buyer, you as the seller pretty much have no reason at all to ever cancel that contract. There are a couple of loopholes, like for example, the buyer there's a blank on the contract that says once it goes into contract, they have so many days to prove to you that they have acquired financing. And let's just say they don't show you that proof within those amount of days. You as the seller legally could cancel the contract. But after that, you're under contract as the seller. The buyer has the upper hand. The buyer, during their due diligence and inspection period, can cancel that contract for any reason. So as a seller, it is so hugely important that you're proactive. You're getting your house ready to sell, as perfect as humanly possible, knowing that it's a used home, right? Knowing that it's lived in. But you should be as proactive as possible because you do not want your contract canceled, okay? If I represent you as the seller, you're going to have a list from me, and I'm going to say, listen, an inspector is going to find this, and this wrong with it. So you want to be proactive and you want to get those things eliminated before you have a buyer that inspects your house. That's what you want to do. As the buyer, know your rights. If you're a buyer, let's just say you work offshore, you work 14 and 14, and you just went under contract yesterday, but you're leaving tomorrow to go offshore for 14 days. Make sure your realtor knows that. If they put 14 days for due diligence and you're offshore the whole entire time, how are you going to be there during inspections and able to speak to the inspector to find out what did they find? So what I do with my buyers is this. I am there for the inspection the entire time. The sellers are generally not there for inspection because the buyer has paid for the inspection. The seller has the right to be there. That's their home. But I am there because legally, according to our Acadiana rules, we have to be on site with the inspector, which, listen, I would be there anyway. I feel like it's my responsibility. I'm there the whole time. The inspection lasts usually 2 to 3 hours. I always tell the buyer, you don't need to be there the whole time. You need to show up at the very end so that the inspector can go over all the things that they found wrong with the house that they consider major. Then you know you're also going to get that report in an email within probably 24 hours. But you're able to speak to the inspector. If they found something major, they can go show it to you. They can explain it to you. They can say, look, this is the remedy. This is what we suggest. So if you're leaving to go to work for so many days, you have to tell your realtor that so that they can give you plenty of due diligence time so that when you come back, you're there for that important process. So those things are important. So remember, know your rights, know what every part of that contract says, have your realtor explain to you line by line. Because lots of times we'll send a purchase agreement digitally and you're not going to read it. Make sure they explain it to you before you sign it. Know what you're signing, understand it. Remember, in real estate, there are no stupid questions. Get with an agent who will make you feel comfortable, who will answer your questions, whether you have 1, 2, or a million questions. It will answer them so that you feel comfortable. Buying a home may very well be one of the most important decisions of your life, and it can potentially save you tens of thousands of dollars if you have a realtor on your team who knows what they're doing. And remember, it doesn't matter if they look busy. If they're not closing deals on a regular basis, it doesn't matter how busy they are. So when you're interviewing agents, before you choose one, make sure you find out how many deals have you closed. Last week, last month, last year. You want someone who's doing it on a regular basis because they've pretty much seen every single thing and they've done the work, right? So if you look busy but you're not closing lots of deals, that's irrelevant. That's absolutely irrelevant. So you want a realtor who's closing lots and lots and lots of transactions so that they can help you. Y'all have a great day. Enjoy this week.